Hey everyone. So I'm going to show you how you can put text credits on your event score. This is also going to include some fade ins and fade outs, dissolves, what we call an audio, or what Premiere calls an audio, an exponential fade in and out, and visually a dip to black. So maybe writing those two things down, fade and dip, so we can find these tools rather quickly. So what I'm going to do is you switched from editing to color in an earlier exercise. Here we're going to go to graphics, and there's a nice handy way of just adding some text anywhere you like in Premiere. I'm going to switch this from browse to edit, and then I'm going to select the text tool. Now you don't want to get too fancy with this. You want to use straightforward fonts. Futura is a fabulous one. Machunas used it and loved it. And you want to give it a title. This is fine. It might look small on a small screen, but you put it on a big projector and it will look quite big. So I'm paying attention to a couple of numbers here. The font, and let's use Futura medium and be consistent. The size is around 100. You can go, um, you know, up to 200 with this font. If it's, you can't go much below 100 or it just gets too lost, even if you have a long title. Um, and I'm paying attention to this. This is the space between the letters. So Futura looks nice with something a little bit wide. So I'm on 85. And if we have two lines, which we will, we'll pay attention to this number. So these three numbers you want to pay attention to. And also the other three things that I'm constantly pointing at is that I want to make sure the text is centered within the box, but I also want to make sure it's centered horizontally and vertically. And every time I make any little change, I'm constantly centering those so I don't forget and it looks bad on the final. Okay, so I'm gonna not do that, but zoom in here. And here's my default file. It doesn't know how many frames to make it, so it just makes a small one. So if you pay attention to this number here, while I click and drag this out, you'll see I'm going to make this title 5 seconds with, and it works out perfectly, with a 1 second fade. I'm going to put it up here because that's a habit of mine. I'm going to take this dip to black. Now all I have to do is make sure I'm in effects, and in my search I just type in dip and it goes right into the video transition folder, the dissolve folder, and dip to black. And there we go. So I'm just going to look at that. You can see that there's an audio transition in and a dip from black to an image. So let's see what that looks like put together. Okay, so that looks fine. I'm going to leave that. And so you can see that the opacity tool that we used last time can be used similarly to fade in. I can use, and I can use it similarly to the dip to black. It really does the same thing. It's just kind of an auto transition rather than the manual process we used. Okay, so I'm going to scroll through this. And show you how we can make some final credits. So you see here I used the exponential fade. I can actually delete that and show you how I did that. I'm also going to carry this over the credits, and I'm going to go to my credits. I'm going to go type, and I'm going to type in my events score written by double space, and then you're going to get the author's name. You're going to find out, look on the card that you were originally given, or you're going to ask the person how to spell their name correctly, and so it looks really good. Now the same thing here. Sorry, make sure I'm in the right box. And I'm going to make this, instead of 5 seconds, I'm going to make it 4 seconds. Credits don't need to be quite as long. And then I can also just kind of copy, and I can paste it, except you see it came in the wrong space. Maybe that happened to you. That's because of these. You want these, you want the paste to be reading the correct channel. It doesn't know where to put them. So now when I hit paste, it goes into the right channel. So now I can double click on that, and instead of event score written by, I can just put directed by, and then put your name because you directed this. And then I can go with it, and it's already 4 seconds. So I'm just going to hit paste again, and I'm going to put camera work by double space, camera person 1, and camera person 2. And I'm just going to hit all my little centering buttons again, because everyone that's different is going to have a different, it's going to be laid out slightly differently. That one looks good. And then I'm going to go to another black space, and I'm going to write performances by, and however many performers you have. If you don't have performers, you don't write this credit. If you have anyone else to credit, you add them in. Anybody else help you with sound or music or anything? Then what I like to do is add to every movie I make. I do this, use Option G on a Mac, and write your name, comma 2020. And I like to make this a little bit smaller than the rest. This is just a great way to make sure, nobody's downloading your work. It's a good habit, no matter what you think of this project. It's a good habit. In case anybody downloads your work and uses it and puts their name on it, that would be a huge problem. But even if they just sort of have the same idea, you have it documented that, oh, I had this idea in 2020. Okay. And so I'm going to do a couple of things in here. I know I want these, I could have spaces between these credits, but I don't want spaces between these credits. I'm going to zoom in on this so it's easier to edit. I'm going to put that there. I'm not going to make this 5 seconds because nobody needs to look at that. I am going to go to the last frame and hit the O on the keyboard, so that the movie ends on this and not on black. I'm going to pull out the audio to here, and I'm going to put an exponential fade on here. Scroll down and look for my audio transitions, crossfade, exponential fade. And just put that in here. And I want to make that super long. It's credits, so I want the audience to barely even know that the sound is fading until it's gone. They're paying attention to the credits. Okay, and the same thing for this image here. This is, one thing, it's actually interrupting the type because it's too bright. And the other thing is, I didn't mention, but make sure you use white text on a black background for these. No fancy colors for this one. And I'm going to type dip. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to Now I can also use the opacity to do that, but either one is fine. Okay, great. So this should look okay, and you should be attuned to what's going on in here. This area, there's no editing going on, so it's green, it's good. Yellow, it's going to play not so well. And red, it's not going to play correctly. You're not going to be able to see exactly, although I can see the fade is working. So before I actually look at it, I'm going to render in and out and hope that this isn't too slow. And it's not. And I have my out point here, and it should play it just as I intended. You see I have some pre-roll audio. And the movie plays. Short but punchy. Okay, and that's actually perfectly acceptable. So hope that was helpful.